Hey everyone, it's Arfan, and I am back with another guest expert for the Successfully Generating Coaches Show. And I'm super happy to have Adrienne Davis with me. How you doing today, Adrienne?
I'm doing good. How are you, Arfan?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. So interestingly, me and Adrienne met because I did a previous interview with Justin Janowski, and I'm part of his CCA, the Christian Coaches Academy, and Adrienne is also part of that program. And we've been doing these coffee chats, and I've joined that program back in December of last year, and and they keep popping up, and they keep popping up, popping up, popping up, and we've never had a chance to hop on a coffee chat. But I knew from just in the group that she was an expert and someone that I wanted to have a conversation with. So the moment we had a coffee chat, I was like, "Hey, I gotta get you on my podcast because I think my audience would love to hear what you have to talk about." Because Adrienne is a health and wellness coach, more specifically, a certified health and wellness coach that's focused on plant based and helping to prevent, if you have type 2 diabetes, like really preventing type 2 diabetes using plants. So it's actually a really unique, I think it's really awesome. And I think it's something that in our culture that we go to now, if I go to the store, there's less and less plants being offered. And the ones that are being offered is a traditional GMO farm stuff. And it's not exactly the go-to type of thing. So I'm really interested to have this conversation and see what kind of tidbits we're gonna get. So with that being said, I want to turn it over to Adrienne so you can like tell us about, tell us a bit more about yourself, who you are, and your journey that got you to becoming a certified health and wellness coach.
Okay. Well, so my journey really began when I was 10 years old. I didn't know it at the time, but
Oh, wow.
my grandma got diagnosed with diabetes when I was 10,
Hmm.
and I had no idea what that was. I just knew that, like, my grandma, who we used to take vacations every summer, we'd go and do things. All of a sudden,
Hmm.
that grandma just decided she wasn't going to go on vacations anymore. She was going to
Oh
stay home.
no.
She was going to lay in bed. And I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on. But she started having to give herself insulin shots and taking a whole bunch of different medications. And, again, I didn't understand what was going on. I'm just like, okay, this is new. Like there's a whole change in her life now. And I really didn't understand
Hmm.
what was going on, but I didn't like it. And it was so frustrating. And
Hmm.
then like she ended up basically very, very slowly over the course of the next 21 years, just really suffering. She developed a lot of other health
Hmm.
complications. She just did not take care of herself. She basically let it be a death sentence
Hmm.
to her. There was no positive change at all. She still kept eating the same foods, wasn't active, and basically laid in bed and wasted away for 21 years. And
Wow.
so then fast forward, she died in 2014, and then in
I'm sorry to
2018,
hear that.
thank you. In 2018, I actually developed really bad anxiety and panic attacks, and a friend of mine had told me about plant-based nutrition, and so I started looking into that. She gave me a video to watch, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like I'm never eating meat ever again after watching this video. And what I found was when I started making some changes to my health, like my panic attacks just kept getting down, like dwindling, and they were
It's
getting less
amazing.
frequent, less severe. And so about a few months later, I met my husband. Yeah, we actually met in like August of 2018 and got married in December.
No,
um,
nice.
yeah, and so he had type 2 diabetes when we met, and
Hmm.
I already knew what this was doing for me, and so I mentioned to my husband like, "Hey, I think you should eat plants for the next 30 days and eat no meat." And he just looked at me like I had just asked him to move to Mars. And so I did a little bit of convincing and just asked him to try it. I'm like, just 30 days. Like that's all you need to do. And then if
Hmm.
because he's a big meat eater, I mean, he had a whole like freezer full of chili when I met him. And so I did some convincing. I'm like, after 30 days, if nothing changes and you're still
Hmm.
feeling the same way you are, go back to eating meat, right? Like no harm,
Hmm.
no foul. And so he decided to, take my advice. And for the next 30 days, he just gave up all meat. And at the end of that, he just was like blown away. I mean, he lost weight immediately. He started feeling better. His medication, he had to get a lower
Amazing.
dose. And he was like, what the heck is going on? And so he decided to keep doing that. And about 3 to 4 months after that initial change, he ended up getting off of all of his diabetes medications, the high blood pressure medicine, and his A1C was back to a normal non-diabetic level, and he lost
Wow.
40 pounds. So he was, I asked him, I was like, are you going back to meat? And he was like, nope, I'm never, never, ever, ever. He's like, I love the way I feel. So he was basically my first client. And again, I still didn't know that this was going to be my life, but I'm like, okay, this is, two people now
Mhm.
that I've known who had this. And then in 2020, my mom got diagnosed with type 2. And I was
Mm.
like, okay, like I just, all the pieces are starting to, like all of these things are hitting me. And that's when God really started speaking to me, and I started giving my mom suggestions, and
Mhm.
she wasn't ready, to take that. And so her health got worse. And then
Mm.
she ended up losing her job because of it. She couldn't work anymore. And yeah, I mean, she ended up finding a doctor, thankfully, a new doctor that told her that she could get through this and that she could reverse it. And, she
Mhm.
kind of just gave her the same information that I had given her back in 2020. And she's now taking that. And as of right now, she's pre-diabetic. She's already went from type 2 to
Type
pre-diabetic.
2, yeah.
And then now she's working towards non-diabetic level. So I just, with all of that, God just slowly nudged me like, hey, there's something here I want you to pay attention to. I want you to really
Mhm.
start helping people with their health. And I mean, I had a job back in 2012 to 2015 as an office manager at an adult high school. And I found myself then leading health and wellness challenges, like a Biggest Loser challenge. I did that with the
Mm.
staff and students. And then I started doing some, different, like having people come in and teach how to cook a meal. And we went to the
Yeah.
local gym and did a workout. And so so it was just like all of these little things in my life that I didn't realize at that point that I was going to be a health coach. But all of these things, it's like God put them just right to where it's
Yeah.
like, okay, now I can see where that was
Mhm.
going and why he had me where he did.
That's awesome. That's an incredible story. Sorry to hear with your grandmother. So many of us probably could relate to that, and where we saw a family member that obviously we love and adore and cherish so much, and through health complications, we see them just downslide from where they were, and the knowledge and education has been increasing quite a bit, especially around plant-based lifestyle and the nutrition. It definitely took a big uprising, so to say, over the past 5 years, but over the decade too as well. So for anyone listening right now, if you're in that position where either you or a family member or someone like that is, you're noticing that you got the report that you're pre-diabetes, you already are type 2. I think Adrienne said something very powerful, that her mom found a doctor that did say you can reverse it, and that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize, that you can reverse it, which is one of the reasons why I'm so happy to have you on the show, because that gives so many hope to some people who just would take it as a death sentence. So in that thought, right? So uh, what are what are some of the things you would, when someone is like, okay, I hear this, I hear what you're saying, like it's amazing what you did for your husband. Obviously, he had to do it for himself too as well, but it's amazing the partnership you guys had. You're helping your mom, and of course, it's other clients there. When they're just realizing this, like they just got the news, or they've had the news for a year or two now, and they haven't really changed anything, and like they're looking at themselves, they're feeling overweight, they're quote unquote trying to lose weight. Say trying because it's a struggle to like lose it and keep it off. It's that yo-yo effect that can happen with a lot of people with type 2. It's because the insulin is just so out of whack. Um, what's some advice you would have for them as a place to start, or even to gain some more awareness around this whole thing?
Well, see, that's where there's a lot of misinformation, because when people normally get diagnosed, doctors don't know a lot of information about plant-based nutrition. And so the main thing they tell them is to, get on oral medications, take your insulin
Mm,
shots. They may tell them to try to get their weight down, but they don't really tell them how. And so people try all kinds of different things. They'll take a pill, they'll go to the gym, they'll,
mm-hmm,
start a program at home. And something might work for a little while, but like you said, eventually, like, it's a yo-yo. Like, they'll stop what they're doing, and it doesn't last long, and then they end up lose or they gain the weight back that they just lost, and then
mm-hmm,
they'll go and lose it again and then gain that back, and it's constant back and forth. And after a while, people can get so frustrated and overwhelmed, and they just quit and just give up permanently. And
mm,
then they are just like, okay, this is my fate. It's just going to be a death sentence. I don't need to try anymore. Nothing's going to change. And the
mm,
the thing is, though, because of the fact that what causes diabetes originally is not what most doctors are telling people. They're saying it's sugar, don't eat fruit, don't eat carbohydrates, get rid of the potatoes and the pasta. And the
mm-hmm,
thing is, when we look at all of the science and the studies that have been done since like the 1970s, at least, and way longer than that, there are numerous studies that show that it's really caused by an excess accumulation of fat, and
mm,
it's mainly from animal products. So when we eat things like meat, what's happening is all of that excess fat is accumulating in our bodies. And our bodies aren't meant to hold as much fat as we're accumulating, because now we're going to McDonald's and getting a Big Mac, and we're going to
yeah,
Wendy's and getting all this stuff. Our bodies aren't really meant to hold all that extra fat. And so all of that fat is really causing our insulin receptors to go haywire, to where our body can't function and use the insulin the way it's supposed to. And so
mm-hmm,
we end up developing insulin resistance, and then, getting type 2. And so when we start to move away from the animal products, away from the fat, and go towards a lower fat with a plant-based diet, what
mm-hmm,
happens is our body can naturally start losing weight. We don't even have to try. When my husband had type 2, before he even became active, all he did was quit eating meat, and he was losing weight, and he
mm,
kept, and he kept it off. It wasn't anything. We ended up starting to be active after that and starting to go hiking a lot, but he lost weight just from giving up meat. And when I've talked to several people and told them that, I had one guy tell me, well, I'll just keep the diabetes because I'm not giving up my steak. And I'm just
mm-hmm,
like, well, that's your choice, but it's unfortunate that, we're so fixated on our comfort foods,
mm-hmm,
and it's like those same comfort foods are really slowly killing us. And we either don't realize it, or maybe we do, and we part of us just doesn't care, or we're too scared to give it up. But
mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, with the weight loss, as soon as you change your food, you're about 80% of the way there, because food matters so much to our bodies, and
Yeah.
we wouldn't even realize all of the things that can happen to our body just from the foods that we put in it.
I'm glad you mentioned active because one of those things where, a lot of our audience listening right now are coaches who are primarily working from home. They may have little kids they're taking care of, or they're working a 9 to 5 or working a regular job and also building a coaching business to where at their job they're sitting a lot. And of course, when you're building a coaching business, you're sitting a lot. You're in front of your computer on Zoom calls or recording content or just typing. We're sitting a lot, so the activity level can be low. um is that a big factor in in the reversal of type 2 in combination with the plant-based, or are you just saying like, hey, just switching from lowered intake of meat or cutting it off completely, like that alone is 80% of the work? Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, well, and I have a framework. So I have clients, I tell them three big things. Number one is the nutrition. You really need to focus on eating more plant foods and eating less animal products. That's meat, dairy, cheese, everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and again, that's 80% of the way. If you're trying to improve your health, you've got it 80% down just by changing your nutrition. But then that still leaves another 20%. But nutrition's a big, big part of it. And then with the 20%, then you're looking at, okay, let's start to be active. Let's look at our sleep habits. Let's look at, our mental health overall.
Hmm.
Because, if you are sitting at a computer all the time and you're isolated and you're not active at all, then yeah, you could still have a little bit of a struggle. Which is why it's so important to get outside and to be able to be active. Um, I really tell clients to start with what they can do, because obviously as an entrepreneur, sometimes some of us are in Zoom meetings all day long, or
Yeah.
have, and
Yeah.
and we don't
Yeah.
have time to sit there and go walk for 3 hours a day, right? Or go jogging or go on a bike ride or whatever. So I tell
Hmm.
clients to start where you are. If that means like, you know, just a few minutes after each meal. So after you eat breakfast in the morning, go take a 10-minute walk. Just
Hmm.
like down your street, take a 10-minute walk. And then after lunch, take a 10-minute walk. After dinner, another 10-minute walk. There you've got 30 minutes of activity during the day that really didn't take very much time at all,
Hmm.
because you did it a little bit each time. And then, like in between meetings, I highly recommend not having meetings back to back. I know some people still will schedule it back to back, but if you can, give yourself at least like 20 to 30 minutes in between a meeting, even 15. Get outside and go inhale fresh air and take a
Hmm.
walk. We have a very small backyard, but we just recently got my husband, for his birthday back in April. We got him a shed, like a big shed. And so it's taking up part of our backyard. I literally walk, we have enough of a walkway to like walk around the shed that I've made. So I can go out there and just take a walk
Do
whenever I'm,
laps around the shed.
yeah, and just take a couple laps around the shed, get my steps in, and I'm good. I'm inhaling the fresh air. I'm, next to the trees. I'm a big tree lover. Which one thing with diabetes, a lot of people struggle with high blood pressure.
Hmm.
And the beautiful thing about trees is that a lot of trees produce these essential oils, basically, and they're called phytoncides. They're a very healthy oil that when you inhale it, it actually lowers your blood pressure. It lowers your stress, your anxiety. And so that's why so many people, when they're like walking out in the woods and they're taking a hike or just a walk, they're
Hmm.
starting to notice that after a while they're feeling better. They're not feeling so anxious. They're not so stressed. And honestly, it sparks your creativity, which many entrepreneurs are like, I can't figure this out, what am I going to do? I feel stuck. If you take a
Yeah.
10-minute walk outside, inhale some fresh air, you're going to find out that the more you do that, you're going to be like, oh, that problem that I just was trying to figure out for the last 2 days, I just had it resolved in my head from a 10-minute walk outside.
Yeah.
um, but that just helps to lower your blood pressure too and helps you stay calm. And then yeah, so those are my three things. Basically, is just, moving away from animal products,
Hmm.
getting outside, getting the fresh air, and moving your body, even if it's just a 10-minute walk whenever you can.
Gotcha. Gotcha. What about those? There's a big debate, so to say, around the plant-based lifestyle in the sense of there's a lot of people who they exercise, they lift weights, they work out, men and women, and they're told that you got to get X amount of protein. There's always a big concern that they're not going to get enough protein or they're not going to be able to perform or have enough recovery if they're just slowly, or not slowly, but solely eating, vegetables and plants. Is that true? What is the truth behind all that?
Yeah. So a lot of people will ask, where do you get your protein from? You need to get protein, you need to be eating animal products for protein. And if you think about it, like I'll ask you, Arfan, how many people do you know who have ever went to the doctor and found out they had a protein deficiency?
Oh, I mean, I don't know anyone that
Yeah.
has
And,
that.
and
Yeah.
and that's my thing though. Like if you think about it, there are so many people who are diagnosed with all of these different diseases and illnesses and deficiencies, but protein deficiency has never been one that I have ever heard of anybody being diagnosed with. It's not when you eat a plant-based diet, in most cases too, people who are eating animal products are eating more protein than their bodies really need.
Hmm.
And but when you're eating plant-based, if you are following a whole food plant-based lifestyle and you're eating, Dr. Greger has this thing called the traffic light system, and I'll explain that in a minute. But if you're basically following the traffic light system, you're going to get everything you need. You're going to get your protein and your iron and your, your calcium and all those other things. You're going to get what you need by eating
Mm,
plants. Because if you look at it, like, I don't remember his name, but the strongest man in the world, he eats plants. He's a vegan. If you look at the strongest and the biggest animal in the world, the elephant, it eats plants. It doesn't eat other animals. And so we have everything that we need by eating plants. So, but yeah, going back to the traffic light system. So there's a thing that it's just like the regular traffic lights. There's called green light foods, where these are
mhm,
foods that you can eat as many of as you want to every day. You don't have to count your calories. You don't have to make sure that you cut your portion. You can eat as many of these as possible. And those are like, fruits, vegetables, leafy greens, all that stuff. And then
mm,
you have yellow light foods, which are these are okay, but proceed with caution, right? Don't like eat a whole bunch, right? And so that's like plant milk, right? So plant milk is good for you, but ultimately it's better to eat a cup of, or like a half cup of almonds rather than drinking almond milk, right?
mhm,
Eating as whole food as possible. And then avocados, because they are a higher fat food, but you can still eat them. They're still good and healthy for you. It's just watch, in moderation. And then you have red light foods, which are, avoid at all cost. Try to, stop right now. Don't go any further, right? And that's animal products, meat and cheese and cow's milk and fish. So
mm. What about like alternative plant foods? Because I go to the grocery store and there's like you see like this the plant-based taco filling or the plant-based this or the plant-based burgers or like there's a whole section or whole aisle in the refrigerated section for like chicken nuggets kind of deals, it's like chickpeas, right? So but what about those type of foods? Where do those fall in the category of the traffic light system?
those are to be avoided. However, I did those things when I first started. And so the way that I look at it is, if you are just starting, if you are, overwhelmed and you don't have the time to go and learn new foods and start all this right now, the easiest thing that I would say is, if you have to start with that, right? Like if that's where
Mm-hmm.
you are, but don't stay there. So like when I first started my journey, like I loved fish. I would go buy these fishless fish from the store, like fish fillets.
Mm-hmm.
And I started there, but the problem is all of those products are high in sodium. And especially if you're dealing with prediabetes or type 2, you really don't want a lot of sodium,
Mm-hmm.
because it just messes with your heart vessels and, it's not good. So
Gotcha.
so I would say be very, very like cautious with that, but still do it. I mean, my husband did it, but he was very cautious and did it, just a little bit at a time, until I got to the point where I was more into that lifestyle and started researching more and starting to cook more whole plant foods at home. But yeah, I mean, that's many people go that route because it's easier to get the plant-based hot dogs and the cheeseburgers and all of that,
Mm-hmm.
but just watch, because so many of them are very high in sodium.
Gotcha. So for our audience, those who are busy entrepreneurs, they're really, they're building their coaching business and they're for lack of a better word, they're on the grind, so to say.
Mhm.
It's a common thing that potentially like going a plant-based lifestyle, there's a lot of prep work needed to make meals, things like that. What are some of your tips to you can give the audience to help them to either gain more awareness around that or kind of approach that a little differently to not look at it as it's an over exhausting kind of deal?
Yeah. Well, I tell my clients the best thing to do is to start with your comfort foods and just turn them plant-based, because I know some people are tempted just to like hurry up and completely revamp everything that they're used to, get rid of all of it and just try a whole bunch of new meals that they've never eaten before. And that can
Mm-hmm.
be very overwhelming very fast. And so if you take your comfort foods, like for instance, if you love tacos, right? We love enchiladas. I love enchiladas, but now you can make them plant-based, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we just started cooking them with beans instead of meat, and we use like this cashew cashew cream, just using cashews instead of sour cream. And you just change those things up. Whatever your comfort foods are that you already know and love, just find a way to make them plant-based so it's not so time consuming. So just instead of buying the meat, buy some beans. And if you don't have time to cook dry beans, get canned beans, right? Just start simple. It just make it as simple as you can where you are, and just know that that's okay in the moment. Don't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm a failure because I can't do this the right way. Like there's really no right way to get started, right? You
Mhm.
go where you are and just make it as simple as you can for you. And then you can
Gotcha.
always progress as you go.
That's great. That's awesome. It's a great tip. So, everyone, if you're listening right now, there's obviously a lot that we can talk about, and there's a whole rabbit hole we can continue going. And this is part of a lifestyle. Anything you can do with lifestyle is never a one and done type of thing. It's a continuous process, and it's helpful to have someone that can be with you and coach you along the way. So, if you're listening to Adrienne and you're thinking, "Hey, I want to actually have support with this," Adrienne, how can someone get a hold of you or contact you, or what does your process look like for working with someone new?
Well, I actually have a group coaching program called Diabetes Remission Academy. And so if somebody wants to jump into that, they can just connect with me, send me an email at adrienne@ravencreekwellness.net.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. And I know that for those who are even exploring the lifestyle or thinking about it, or even have some awareness after today's conversation, Adrienne also has a resource that she has for us to so that she can share. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and also where we'll be able to get to where we can get that from?
Yeah, that'll be on my website, and you can post a link in the show notes.
Yeah, I'll drop a link
But
below.
it's at ravencreekwellness.net is the site. And then it's just the resource I mentioned previously. It's my 3-part framework, just to let you know it's 3 keys to boost your health this weekend. So you don't have to
Hmm.
start until a week or a month from now. You can start now.
Awesome. I love that because it's just this weekend, right? So try it for the weekend. Or like Andrew's husband did. He tried it for 30 days and see what the results were after that, and before making a decision on this is something he wants to do permanently or not. So take it slow, take it one day at a time. So I love that resource. So again, that's 3 keys to what is it called again? 3 keys to
Keys to
boost
boost
your
your health this weekend.
this weekend. Awesome. Love that. So I will drop the link in the show notes and also in the email so you guys can grab that. And again, Adrienne, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. Before I finally close this, I also want to give, we're talking to entrepreneurs, those who are, high stress field, high demand field. Health is something that's always top of mind, but can sometimes be on the back burner. Is there any last piece of advice that you want to share with the audience?
I just want to say that diabetes is not a death sentence. And despite what you've been told, you can reverse it. And with a lot of work, it is work, but you can take your time and you can get there. So don't give up.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. Don't forget to share this episode with someone you think it might be helpful for, someone that you think that they need a little bit of awareness or knowledge around some lifestyle changes they could make to better improve their health, loved one, or whatever the case may be. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, subscribe to the channel. And again, I appreciate each and every one of you, and I will catch you all on the next episode. Have a great one. Bye.